and welcome back to Football by the Numbers. We weren't just talking about a different sport. We were talking about football. I am John. You know me as the one who keeps this podcast alive. I am joined by two gorgeous hunks who help me keep this podcast alive.
Emphasize on the hunks.
Willard and Andrew. Will, how are you doing this evening?
It's always Will first. It's always Will.
Obviously, I'm trying to get him to talk.
God.
Express his emotion early.
Your turn. Let's go. Let's see what you got.
Doing just dandy. Just dandy, John. Could be better if we were playing for third place in Rec League, but, I'll take fifth. It was a down,
it's all right. That's what happens when somebody doesn't take it seriously and doesn't show up to the last couple of games. You kind of are left with people like you and I. You, obviously a very skilled wingback. Me, a completely unskilled striker. 1 goal on the season, but like 4 or 5 assists. But, that's what I do. Andrew, obviously we're talking about you. How are you?
I am doing just fantastic. It's been a great rec season.
It's been a great half a rec season for you, I'm sure. Anyway, let's get to the real point here, guys. Let's jump straight into it. International soccer. World Cup 2022 is coming up in the in Qatar in the winter, so that it's not 130 degrees. That's right, we'll be playing just in the cold 100 degrees of the Qatari winters. We obviously missed out on giving our reactions to the U.S. men's national team qualifiers and basically shitting the bed, but able to clean it up and still limp to the barn through the World Cup qualifiers to the World Cup. Boys, let's react real quick to that. How do we feel about Greg basically almost failing? Andrew, let's come to you first.
Oh, yes! I'm first. I am not a GG fan. I am just not happy with the way we ended that window. I think that was probably one of the worst ways we could have ended the window. We didn't only lose. We lost, 3-0?
2-0.
We lost 2-0 against Costa Rica. It's just embarrassing. The players didn't look like they really wanted to be out there. You could tell that they were kind of trying to balance between, I was told not really to get hurt or do much, but then at the same time, I'm still out here and I like to compete. Why would we just not go out there and absolutely hammer them and send the biggest message, beat Mexico, come right behind Canada, and actually show that we're ready for this World Cup and come out on a high note? Rather, now we came out on a low note that we're trying to turn into a high note because, hey, we made it to the World Cup. Last time we didn't.
All right, yeah, let's call a spade here. I think this is the worst possible thing the worst way we could have played and still gotten in. It's like when Bayern won the, here I go, Bayern again. It's like when Bayern in 2000, I think it was 18-19, when we had Niko Kovac, but we still won the German Cup and we won the league. It was horrible. It was awful. We were not playing well in the Champions League. We went out super early, still won the double though. And everybody's like, oh yeah, we're awesome, Niko Kovac. He was a horrible coach. He left mid-season and then brought in one of the best coaches that we've ever had in Hansi Flick, who immediately won us the sextuple. Everything that we could have won, we won, and he's now the coach of Germany, so we'll see what he gets to do success-wise. Will, I know you're an apologist for Greg. I know that you said 4 points was enough, and it indeed was enough.
Definitely better than John and I. You definitely feel better than John and I.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Let us slaughter your opinion here. Go ahead.
They've never won in Costa Rica. I'm not sure they've ever gotten any result. So 2-0 is not that bad against Keylor Navas for 3/4 of the game before he left due to an injury. Even if you do go out on a high note, you have a 6-month break or more. It's not gonna carry over to World Cup qualifiers, that momentum.
You don't know that. I mean, come on. You come back and you're like, yeah, we're going to do this again. We're going to kick ass. And now it's like, oh, well, these guys again. Let's kind of qualify this here. I think this was a very good representation of how much we miss Serginho Dest and Weston McKennie in the lineup. Can we all agree on that?
Yeah, I agree. And Will, just to go back to your statement, is you're talking about Costa Rica. Dude, in 6 months, we're playing teams like freaking Germany, Brazil, France, what are you going to say then?
Costa Rica's in the playoff to get in, man.
They're in the playoff and they're going to lose and whatever.
I think they're going to win the playoff.
You think so?
New Zealand? So.
I think Costa Rica should be the least of our worries. And the fact that we couldn't end out on a good note, winning away, which we have hardly done in the qualifiers?
We have not done in the qualifiers, as a matter of fact. We have 0% win rate in the last 10 games away from home.
To go into the World Cup, which is going to be played on neutral grounds, aka away for every country, just doesn't seem like the right note to set it off on. If we would have lost 1-0 and it looked like there was some fight to give, I'd have a different response. But the fact that it lost 2-0 almost probably could have been 3 or 4-0. And the players just looked like they had zero interest in playing.
Well, and it shows, too, like, all it takes to stop America is a semi-competent goalkeeper. Not to say that Keylor Navas is only semi-competent, because he's a very, very good goalkeeper. Probably one of the top 10, top 15 goalkeepers in the world. Like, it shows also what a gaping hole we have in the striker position, which, stay tuned, by the way. Make sure to comment, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you get all the updates on when we go. If we go live during the World Cup, that's a possibility on the table. But we have an option that we think will work in the striker position other than the obvious Daryl DK. So stay tuned for that. I did the Y series again. I think this one's going to be a good fit for the system, provided Greg actually calls this person up and gets him some starting time and some playing time. But anyway, like, that's all we need against Manuel Neuer, against David De Gea, or one of the other Spanish goalkeepers that are somewhat competent, Kasper Schmeichel, or Ederson, or Allison, or Lloris, or Maignan.
We could focus on the good goalkeepers in our group.
Pickford's not a good goalkeeper. I refuse to say that.
John, do you know who's in our group?
I do know who's in our group. Yeah.
All right, let's read off the names.
Yeah, let's go through the groups real quick. Big omissions from the World Cup. Italy miss out. Euro Cup winners 2020, 2021. COVID. So Group A, we have Qatar, who make it in by default. Ecuador, Senegal, and Netherlands round out Group A. Group B is England, Iran, USA, and either Ukraine versus Scotland or Wales. Group C is Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Poland. Group D, France, Denmark, Tunisia, and Australia, UAE, or Peru. Colombia, I believe, misses out. Group E, Spain, and then New Zealand or Costa Rica, they're in that playoff spot. Germany and Japan, wow, I wonder who's going to win that group. Group F is Belgium, Canada, Morocco, and Croatia. That's kind of a group of death there. Group G, Brazil, Serbia, Switzerland, and Cameroon. That's another group of death. Group H is Portugal, Ghana, Uruguay, and South Korea. You know, let's focus on our group. England, obviously the best team in the group.
Tied to be the best team in the group. I think the U.S. has potential to be the best in the group.
We'll just go based on world rankings. You could just give it to England, but
I went through 10 different teams for their games that they played the last 10 games. Let's go through the teams. We have, in order, the FIFA World Cup rankings of the top however many teams that are actually in the World Cup. Brazil's number 1, Belgium's 2, France 3, Argentina 4, England number 5. They're the 5th team in the world. Runners up for the Euro Cup, and Brazil obviously the runners up of the Copa America. Spain, Portugal, Mexico, Netherlands, Denmark, Germany, and the USA are the teams that I looked at. So if we look at England have won 70% of their last 10 matches. So they've got 7 wins from 10, and the other 3 are draws. So their XG per match is 1.71, but it exceeds the US men's national team by about 0.1. However, the U.S. men's national team underperformed their XG figure, so their XG is 1.62, but we only score about 1.5 goals per game. England has 1.71 XG per game, and they score 3.6 goals per game. And they concede about 0.4, whereas we concede about 0.7. They average about 66% possession, whereas we average right about 57. Let's think about the English starting lineup. Their right backs could be Trippier if he's healthy, Alexander-Arnold, Kyle Walker. You've got John Stones, Harry Maguire back there who, despite Harry Maguire's recent form, midfielders, if you go with what they did in the Euro Cup, Calvin Phillips and Declan Rice are a solid midfield combination. They could go Mason Mount at the 10. They could go Grealish at the 10. And then, the wingers, Sancho, Rashford, Sterling, Grealish again, Foden. They've got Harry Kane at striker. There's not like a weakness that we can exploit.
Except
and
this is Southgate.
Say what you want about the guy, but he unites that English team, gets past those team differences of Liverpool, Man United, or Man City and anybody else, Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham, and he gets an English team together and can bring them to be runners-up at a major national tournament like he has several tournaments now.
He was my weakness for the team with how conservative he plays with all the talent.
I mean, look at England. What did they score? One goal maybe through, or have one goal scored against them through the Euros in the group stages, maybe through the whole tournament. If I was their manager on FIFA, I'd manage that team a lot differently than having two defensive midfielders, but it's solid. You see your weakness in Harry Maguire and you build around that instead of trying to go forward offensively. But this is who we're up against. We break down the other teams in this top 10. Let's start at the top with Brazil. Same as England. Won 7 of the last 10, drew 3 of their last 10. XG 4 per match is 1.85. They scored 2.3. I think the United States was the only team that underperformed their XG on an actual basis other than Argentina. And Argentina was about the same figure as we were, with about 1.63 XG per match, whereas ours is 1.62, and they score 1.5 goals a match, which is what we do. And Argentina's also won 7 of their last 10 and drawn the last 3.
To play devil's advocate, I think the U.S. is set up pretty well in the way that our style is played to go at England.
Disagree.
We're
playing away from home. If we were playing in Miami or if we were playing in
I'm not talking about arena. I'm talking about style of play on the pitch. I think England is one of the best teams the U.S. could have drawn against to have a fighting chance to actually tie or beat to get that 1 or 2 spot in the group stages. If I see us drawing Spain, France, Germany, the more expressive and talented and creative teams,
and high octane,
we're absolutely in trouble. The fact that England is almost just like the US in that they do the exact same thing every single game, that it's going to be 2 teams that park the bus and who's going to be able to get through and get a goal, because England and the US are almost predictable, exactly the same. You almost can predict their lineups. You know who's going to be in there for the most part, except for maybe the US striker position. I mean, I would almost argue that every position in the US has been solidified over the past 6 months, minus the striker.
Who are your 2 starting wingers?
I think you have Dest starting and you have Robinson in there.
No, he's talking about wingers.
Wing forwards. Yeah.
Oh, my wing forwards? Well, I mean, coming in the World Cup, it's got to be Gio Reyna and freaking Pulisic. Are you kidding? Like, how are those 2 not starting?
Tim Weah is like, what the heck?
Well,
and also
Tim Weah is a
Gio Reyna seems to get some sort of fracture or sprain or injury every other week.
And Tim Weah is a great solidify, but I think Gino Reyna and Brendan Anderson play similar, and I think Christian and Tim Weah play similar. So it's kind of like a wash in my mind of wingers. Like, that's not – the wingers is not going to define the U.S.
But if Reyna's hurt, then do you pair Weah with Pulisic or do you pair him with Aronson?
In my mind, Gino Reyna and Weah are partners on one wing, and you got Pulisic and Aronson partners on the other wing. That's how I think Gigi's going to go about it. I could be totally wrong. But when it comes down to
still no mention of the DILF. God.
There's not a chance.
Yeah, unfortunately not.
There is not a chance in a World Cup game against England he is in the lineup.
I mean, I don't think he makes the plane, unfortunately. Like, the wing is one option where it's like, yeah, I'd like to see some talent like Conrad De La Fuente in there, but I mean, we're just so solid and stacked in those positions that if he doesn't make the plane, we're fine in that position. So we're not in a great position here as far as some of these other teams that we could play. I mean, looking at XG per match, the only team that we beat out in XG per match is Belgium, who has 1.55, and Denmark, who has 1.43. Belgium and Denmark both are at 2.2 goals a game, so they overperform their XG figures every time. What if we face a team like France? France has over 2 XG per match, and they're scoring about 3 goals a game. Hell, England's scoring 3 goals a game at this. I understand where you're coming from that England, yeah, they're going to do the same thing every game. But who's beaten them even before the Euros? I can't think of any. I mean, they haven't been beaten in their last 10 games. They've had 3 draws. They scored almost 40 goals in their last 10 games. Like, they play similar styles, but the difference, you know, and Serginho Dest, Trent Alexander-Arnold. Trent Alexander-Arnold is obviously the best right back in the world, but they play similar styles, so I'll call that a wash. Like, Harry Kane's one of the best strikers in the world, or at least was, and you can play through him, whereas I can't name a single U.S. men's national team striker that you can play through. The wingers are better in England. The midfield is better in England. The defenders.
I would argue our midfields match up pretty well with how our midfield has been playing. I totally disagree. You have Musa, who's one of the strongest midfielders, size per pound. You have McKennie, who's the biggest engine on the team. And then you have Tyler Adams' brain. Like, I think the midfield is almost a wash for both teams.
I mean, I disagree. I think Declan Rice is absolutely a phenomenal player. And I think Declan Rice is like a...
You think Declan Rice is better than Weston McKennie and Juventus?
Yes, I absolutely
disagree.
do. I absolutely do. Just look at their market value.
I thought it was pretty even.
I don't think Rice has had in the form that McKennie was in before he broke his foot, I think he was arguably one of the top midfielders in all of Europe.
I disagree. I think just the role that Declan Rice plays, I'm just going to call you out on bullshit. I can name 10 midfielders right now that are better than McKennie in the world right now. I would absolutely rather have him.
Rice would not be one of mine.
Absolutely he would. Absolutely. Then you're just wrong. I'm sorry. You're just wrong. This is not what we're going to talk about. I'll do another why series on why you're wrong on that. Will, to your point of Gareth Southgate is their weakness. Greg has to be our biggest weakness then. Like, bigger than we don't have a striker, bigger than if one of our starting pieces is missing, then, you know, we're kind of out for a loop.
I think the midfield's one of maybe the biggest strength. I'd probably go with the midfield over the defenders are solid. The wingers also.
I'd say defense to defense, our defenses match up pretty well. I think Walker Zimmerman and Miles Robinson have been pretty solid in the back line. Yeah, they've made a couple of gaffes. Dest and Robinson charging forward. I wish Robinson would give up possession less, and I wish he would put an accurate cross in the box whenever he was just bomb forward and cross. Although he is a very good offensively creative player. England has a leg up again with TAA, but we actually have a natural left back that we can play. Luke Shaw's been crap this year, and that's the only good English left back I can imagine them playing.
So in the past 10 games, who has England played worth caliber to the US? Do you know? Do we know what their last 10 games, who they played?
They beat the Ivory Coast, Switzerland, San Marino, Albania, Hungary, who was a team that almost went through in the Euros in the group of death. Yeah, they tied Hungary 1-1. They tied Poland 1-1. They beat Andorra twice. They beat Hungary 4-0. And that's all since the Euros when they lost. On penalties. They haven't been beaten in regular time since November 15th, 2020 against Belgium.
Well, that makes me feel a little better, the last 10 opponents.
Their last 10 opponents, what I'm trying to prove is their last 10 opponents versus the U.S. last 10 opponents. I would argue the U.S. had a harder schedule than England did, going against Mexico, Costa Rica, Canada.
Costa Rica?
I would argue those teams are ranked higher than any of the 10 that you just read besides Switzerland and Poland. Those are the only two other teams that Poland, but Hungary didn't even make it. Are they in a play-in game?
No, they're not.
Well, Costa Rica's in a play-in game. So to me, those all
okay, but they're in a play-in game in a weaker division. You can name 15 teams in Europe better than Hungary. I mean, it's two different leagues. Yeah, you can just say, but there's a reason that UEFA gets more buy-in slots to the World Cup than does CONMEBOL or CONCACAF or any of those.
But strength of schedule matters. Talent,
I would argue that since November 15th of 2020, England have absolutely played a lot higher caliber of teams. I'm going to guarantee you they have. There are 4 teams in CONCACAF that are above the rank of 50. Mexico's number 9, USA's 15, Costa Rica's 31, Canada's 38. If we look at UEFA, since November 15th, 2020, they played Belgium. They played who's number 2. They played Italy, who's number 6. They played Switzerland, who's 14. They played Poland, who's 26. They played Hungary, who's 40. Albania is 66.
That's just two more opponents who were in the top 50.
And that's since 2020.
So World Cup qualifiers, they played San Marino, obviously not. Albania, we already said, was 66. Poland, 26th. They played Austria, who's 34th. They played Romania, who is 48th. They played Hungary, who is 40th. Switzerland, who is 15th. Coming up in the Nations League, they play Hungary, Germany, Italy, both of those teams twice. So they'll have the opportunity to get a sneak peek against some of the best teams in the world. We lose against Canada again on their counterattack without Alphonso Davies. We're in a league where we should be the best team. We have one of the most talented teams in the world. Our average squad age is like 22, 23, 24. We have some of the hottest up-and-coming talent on the roster with Christian Pulisic, who's already established, but he's still very young. I mean, if he can stay healthy and find his way into a Thomas Tuchel system, he'd be an incredible player. We've got Pepe, slow start in Augsburg. Daryl DK, obviously. Brendan Aronson is one of the most sought-after wingers in the world right now because he's inexpensive, less than 30 million. Caden Clark. Obviously, Caden Clark. We haven't mentioned him in a couple videos. You know who else that Will mentioned to me? Will, I want you to talk about this person. Because I said this person could steal a place on the plane and maybe even steal a starting spot. I said he would have to have less than a goal a game average, which I believe he's averaging about 0.6 per game. He's got 5 clean sheets in 8 starts and 8 appearances. Only 5 goals let in. Will, why don't you talk about this player?
Are we talking about Gaga Slonina here?
The 17-year-old wonder goalie from the Chicago Fire.
Yeah, he's off to a heck of a start. I know he wants to break the MLS single season shutout record, and he's off to a great start. He's had 5 clean sheets.
Yeah, out of 34 games to play, he started 8 and he's already got 5 clean sheets. I said if he had 17 clean sheets, he gets the start, no questions asked for me.
I think he's already competing for the 3rd spot, with Horvath and Sean Johnson. Zach Steffen, and Matt Turner are both backups in the Premier League next season,
You used my own argument against me of form over training and form over quality of training. He's in great form, and he's starting week in, week out in the MLS. 5 clean sheets and a save percentage as high as Manuel Neuer's. And
on a shit team.
Yeah, they're like
Chicago
10th
Fire.
right now. They're 10th right
Have
now
they
in the
won
MLS,
and 2 games?
Yeah, he's got 5 clean sheets out of 8 games, and they're still sitting in 10th. So it's not his fault that they're not getting points in the MLS. He's an exciting prospect, one to watch. Boys, this has been fun enough at least. Any closing thoughts? Who do we think is going to win the World Cup? Comment down below. Who do you guys think is going to legitimately win the 2022
I'm not good at that. That's just not fair because I can't pick anybody other than the US.
Okay, then let's go.
It's not
let's
allowed.
Let's see.
Just not allowed. I am an American. I will root for the US till I die. Nobody's better. We are winning.
Will, would you agree, or would you like to actually make a good pick?
Well, you make the better pick.
I agree with Andrew's comments, but I will pick.
Who wins our group? Does England win?
Brazil's got to win. Brazil's got to win this year, right?
In?
I think England wins the group, but we get in. I'm not too worried. It'll be tough.
It will be the right amount of difficulty to get us ready to maybe make top 32.
I was going to say, I think that we get in, but we get in the playoffs for having like the most points out of the 3rd place teams. I'm going to make an unpopular prediction and say that. I'm going to go with Germany. I think Germany's going to win. I think they have a very hard group with Spain. I think Spain is one of the dark horses in this race. You can never count out Cristiano Ronaldo over there at Portugal. And who knows, England might not choke and bottle this one. I think they have a very good chance of doing it. But my bet is with Germany right now. I think France is kind of a paper tiger. They look good on paper, but they bottled it way too many times. They were the favorite going into the Euros. They screwed that up. They were the favorite going into Euro 2016, and they screwed that up. They actually managed to fulfill their potential in the World Cup in 2018. I think it's going to be Germany. I think with Hansi Flick, the greatest manager ever, I think they're going to do it. I think they're going to bring it home. Boys!
Rate our group. Who's first, second, third, fourth? since you think the U.S. is third.
I hope that Scotland makes it. Yeah, I think that'd be a tough matchup. I think England wins the group. I think that if Scotland makes it in, I believe we can get second. I think if it's Wales, then they get second.
So you have England, Wales, U.S., Iran.
Correct. What if it's Ukraine?
I think if it's Ukraine, I think Ukraine gets third. I think we can beat Ukraine. I think they're kind of an aging team and obviously in some turmoil worldwide, which thoughts and prayers go out to them. Okay, let's say USA out of it. Who's your educated guess to who wins the World Cup? No USA allowed. I say Germany.
I'll say Brazil. Boring.
I say Brazil. Will, I want your bracket.
England, US. In our group. But I think Wales would be the toughest of the three.
All right, well, we will see. We will see, just like we will see you guys next time. Boys, thank you so much for joining me. Is there anything you'd like to plug? Not really, since we haven't been that active on YouTube.
Y Series coming out soon.
Keep your eyes out for the Y Series. Yes, sir.
Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening. We are Football by the Numbers.